Good morning. I'm Francis Goodwin with Mickey Z. It's a beautiful, beautiful day, sunny day in Vermont. How's it going there in New York City, Mickey?
Yet another very muggy, humid day with a threat of rain, which has been the case for quite some time.
It can really be hot in New York City. Oh man, in the summer.
And then there's the subways, that's its own climate that takes on its own weather report.
You like to help homeless people, in particular homeless women. Are many of them in the subways in the summer?
Not so well. It depends. I mean, there are some women who essentially live on the platforms or in the stations. Not that many. More men do that, but there are some that feel more comfortable. They might have been the women who are older and been homeless longer. But even this past week, even the women who tend to be, I find, in the subway more often, have come outside. So that'll give you an idea, because the real feel on the street, very humid, is approaching 3 digits, and that's considered preferable to being inside the subway. Not the train itself. The trains are now air conditioned. When I was a kid growing up, there wasn't even air conditioning in the trains. But once you get on the actual train, you can breathe. But the waiting on the platform is a whole nother story.
Wow, that's pretty cool what you've been doing. How have you been getting good response to your donations, your donation page?
It's an evolving process. It's an evolving process. I have to constantly look for new donors, a new donor base, but I do have a steady group of people I can rely on, and I've gotten quite adept at stretching the money that I do get, and the material donations.
Yeah, I noticed that sometimes you'll post that people will donate items. Maybe it's aspirin, or well, not aspirin, but different toiletry kind of things that people can use.
Yeah, I have a wish list on Amazon that I constantly change it depending on the, like, for example, right now you might have sunscreen and so on, aspects related to the summer, while in the winter would be hand warmers and winter hats and so on. So some people prefer to actually order the material goods and ship it here. To me, it's like whatever you're comfortable with.
Yeah. Mickey, the last story that you wrote was about Facebook, and I think it was a little bit tongue-in-cheek. Can you talk a little bit about that?
A little bit. It's a satirical expression, listicle, as in this clickbaity world we live in. But it's a satirical expression of some feelings that I've had about social media in general, Facebook in particular. And I've been doing a fair amount of reading on the topic and watching short YouTube lectures and so on, particularly by people who were there at the beginning with the internet, and then the phasing into social media. And I began to realize that a lot of the trends that I felt were disturbing to me and impacting me in a negative way are trends that have been studied and have been shown to increase incidences of anxiety, depression, and overall general stress.
Yeah, it's a whole new world. We don't know, what. We've never had Facebook before, so we don't know what it's doing to us, to our children, to our society. I just noticed this last week has been a bad week for Facebook stock. The stock is finally starting to reflect the impact to their business of people realizing that their privacy, just to the degree to which they've lost their privacy, and that it was being sold off to other people. It's just interesting to me that there's been a lag. It's taken a while for the stock to start to reflect what people feel about the stock.
I wonder, because I mean, obviously Facebook is quite skilled at marketing, so they would do an excellent job of presenting that the steps they're taking and so on, and things are moving, and sort of like the Wizard of Oz, don't look over there type of. But I also think that Facebook as a platform, from talking to younger people, is losing popularity amongst younger people. And I was listening to a sports podcast recently, and the guy who was in charge of it was in his late 40s, and he brought his daughter on, who's 13, to talk about pop culture, because they were trying to expand the the ground they're covering. And she casually said with a chuckle that, oh no, she goes, old people use Facebook. None of my friends use Facebook anymore. And obviously I don't have children and I'm nowhere near that age range. That was quite a revelation for me. And so when I saw the stock news, I thought to myself, it's a variety. Like you said, the privacy issues are definitely a factor. But I think, there was a time when MySpace was everything to kids in their teens.
Yeah.
And now MySpace is a punchline to a joke. And we do like, we're trapped in the moment. We do like to believe that whatever is in and popular now will be in and popular forever. And we never seem to learn from the past. But honestly, I mean, I'll ask you this question. Would you be astonished if in 5 years Facebook is sort of a footnote and something else has come up?
No, I wouldn't at all, because that's what happened with MySpace, and almost in a blink of an eye.
Yeah.
It went within a year or two. It went from being on top to being nothing. Just, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's something of people younger than us may not even really grasp that. But I distinctly remember having conversations when cell phones first became popular, and I'd be walking through the streets of New York and suddenly notice people talking on their phone. And it was a jolting reality. And I can remember saying at the time I was skeptical, to tell you the truth. I could never have foreseen smartphones. So again, like we think we know what's going to happen, and then something else happens. But the speed at which things like cell phone uses go from novelty to apparently a requirement, or MySpace gets replaced by Facebook, I try to learn from that and just say that I don't really know. Unless it's in my specific area or my personal life, I try not to make any more bold predictions, because as the physicist Niels Bohr once said, predictions are hard to make, especially about the future.
Yeah. 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 I remember this was 20 years ago. The dentist I had in New York City was really big on AOL. Oh man, I got more AOL stock. It's doing great, because at that particular time frame, few months, AOL was going to the moon. If you had AOL, you were there. Well, I started to try to explain to him about Prodigy, which was the service that came just before AOL, that flashed, and CompuServe that came before Prodigy, that flashed. And so in the 20 years since then, we saw AOL go down the tubes and get replaced by MySpace, as the most popular forum for people to meet and go online. So yeah, I mean, Facebook could easily be history. We've seen him making efforts, with Instagram, to try to diversify, to try to buy the apps that are going to put him out of business in the future, and be able to own them anyway.
Yeah, I mean, that's just, it's like an evil genius almost to some degree, because he's not. I mean, look, people become arrogant regardless of how successful they are, but I'm going to assume that he's not jolted by a drop in stocks, because he's been following it. And as you said, the branching out of buying the Instagram. I don't know who owns Snapchat, but it seems from listening to younger high school and younger, Snapchat is infinitely more popular than Facebook, and a lot more popular than Instagram. So I think that in this day and age where it's so easy to track what people use, you don't have to wait for long marketing. Like, you could find out in 24 hours the trends that could decide where you're going to invest your money, what direction you're going to go in. I'm sure Zuckerberg will pull the plug on Facebook before it goes the way of MySpace, and he'll be left standing at whatever the next thing is. And me personally, to get back to the article, I have no control over this, and I don't pretend to have any inside information as to what might happen. So I can only see what it does for me personally. And I'm in a situation right now where it's been a long time since I took a Facebook break. So I'm planning to do that for in August, and just see how it feels to not have that pull towards Facebook that I never imagined was going to happen to me. I was kind of late to the game. I didn't join till 2010. And I know that people were pretty active by 2007, 2008. And I was like, oh, that's never going to be me. And yeah, I joined. And then ultimately, when Occupy Wall Street started, the true addiction began for me, and hasn't really ended. And I need to, based on my personal opinion and from reading and listening to people who are either computer, social media experts or mental health experts, they highly recommend just taking a break and seeing what it feels like, because you can't assess how you feel about Facebook while you're on Facebook. And I think I'm going to, this article is sort of a satirical expression of some of the trends that would push me in the direction of taking a break.
Wow, you know, you're framing it like an addiction, like like an alcoholic needs to step away from the booze for a while to really get to realize what they're doing, or any drug. It sounds like a similar thing that you're describing.
Well, they describe it as a dopamine fix. Like every like, every share, every notification. They've done studies where they've had people linked up to machines and so on, and they said it hits the parts of the brain that substance abuse would hit, or even something like, say, gambling. Like it doesn't have to literally be drug or alcohol. And so I'm not breaking any new ground here. I just decided to open my mind to accepting that I might need a break. And I'm not even someone, like, I have a smartphone, but it stays in my pocket all the time. It's sort of more like a bat phone to me, where I'm able, and I use it as a camera. That's one of my hobbies, and it takes excellent pictures. So when I look around and see people whose smartphone is perpetually right in front of their face, I can't imagine how that feels like. In the same way that I can't imagine how it feels to have grown up in a world without the internet in general and without social media and smartphones in particular. I honestly could not imagine. I am grateful that, I mean, sometimes aging is not the most fun process in the world, but I'm grateful that I lived in a simpler time where we just didn't have these options. Therefore, we lived our lives differently. And it felt in some ways healthier physically and emotionally, because I was more active and I was more social, ironically, before I was on social media.
Wow. And I'm going to wrap this up because we're going long, and I don't want these videos to go too long, and I'd like to see what I can do with it. And then I want to post it on Facebook, so maybe some people on Facebook can see it, get a little bit of feedback. Thank you, Mickey.
Thank you. It's my pleasure.
And I hope we can do this again soon. Maybe. All right.
All right. Have a great day.
You too, sir. Thank you.